Imagine a life of backbreaking labor where your muscles scream in agony from dawn to dusk, and your only escape is diving into a virtual realm, a game where rumors promised that the one to clear it would gain godlike wealth. When he finally conquers the impossible, securing a fortune in his dreams, he drifts into a peaceful slumber. But upon waking, his reality has shattered. Monsters now roam the earth. The game has merged with the real world, and he is the only player who holds the strategy guide. He is determined to break the system. Our saga ignites on a deceptively clear morning. A lone figure sits masked, wearing a VR headset, gasping for air as sweat pours down his face like rain. Inside the digital void, a message flashes. Congratulations. He has passed the final hellish trial, standing alone at the summit of victory. Breathless, he asks, "Is it truly over?" A pixelated screen flickers in the darkness. To the world, it was known as the Scam Game, but its true name was Prophecy Online. It was a masterpiece of hyper-reality, an immersive action RPG compatible with resolution far beyond 16K. It was an open world where players could taste the air and feel the wind. This was Prophecy Online. The developers swore that the champion would receive a treasury so vast, it could not be exhausted in 1,000 years. Of course, the public mocked it as a fairy tale, but he admits he was the fool who believed. He was the devotee who poured his soul into the game while it drained his wallet. Endo recalls the day everything shifted. A memory surfaces of his construction team taking a breather. He was stuck in the grind asking about afternoon debris duty. After failing to find a white-collar job he had fallen into, manual labor, trapped in a cycle of sweating under the scorching sun and enduring the insults of his seniors. Suddenly, Andre's phone buzzes. A notification from the Prophecy Online administration. His eyes widen. He thought he had blocked their spam, but the message froze his blood. They were congratulating him for claiming first place in the beta test, stating the cash reward was already on its way. A cynical smile creeps onto Endo's face. Do they really think I will fall for this phishing scam again? He scoffs, checking his bank app just to prove them wrong. There is no way they actually sent. His voice dies in his throat. The balance reads 1 million yen, real money. A coworker approaches barking orders for the next shift, but Endo is no longer listening. The man grabs his shoulder asking if he is sick. Endo simply explodes into motion, sprinting away and laughing like a madman, leaving his confused senior in the dust. Where are you going? As he runs with a heart full of hope, he wonders, is this the beginning? Can I truly make a living as a professional gamer? The promise of wealth that lasts 10,000 years drives him to surrender his entire existence to the game. But Prophecy Online was a cruel mistress. It treated players as mere sacrifices. The tower's guardian erased defeated users and their save data instantly. The dungeon exits were randomized, and the cruelest twist, the pain feedback was real. Players felt every cut, every burn, forcing them to confront the primal fear of death. Most quit in terror. Endo barely scraped by paying bills, with part-time scraps. To fuel his obsession, he descended into hell, borrowing from loan sharks and banks. He had no option left but to win. He needed those unlimited assets that would last 10,000 years. Flashback to the moment of victory. The system simply congratulates him, claiming the true reward was the journey itself. Exhausted and trembling, he rips the headset off. Denial washes over him. Is that it? Did I really do it? Panic sets in. He scrambles for his phone, desperate for the transaction notification. He opens the final email from the developers. It was an announcement. We have reached our objective. Prophecy Online will now cease all operations. Rage boils in his veins. What about my money? He scans the credits, thanking sponsors, but sees no mention of the grand prize. Nausea hits him like a truck. The phone slips from his trembling fingers, cracking against the floor. He collapses, kneeling in defeat. Will they send it later? Surely they must reward the champion. Outside, the sun shines mockingly, the neighborhood peaceful, oblivious to his ruined life. He drags his heavy body toward his bed, whispering lies to himself. It is a massive transfer. It takes time for the banks to process. Endo collapses, muttering, I will check again tomorrow. But the next day brings only silence. Nothing arrived beyond that initial 1 million yen. He realizes he should have walked away then. 1 week later, a thunderous boom shakes the foundation. What is happening so early in the morning? Endo grabs his phone, but the sound. It is not digital. He looks up and his blood runs cold. A holographic system window floats in the sky. Notification. The trial of ice has failed. Moscow. Annihilated. Next stage, the Earth trial. Time limit 43 days. If they fail, the entire test site will be erased. Standing in Japan, he realizes, Chaos engulfed the broadcast station as terrified reporters struggled to comprehend the nightmare unfolding on screen. Moscow was no longer a city of humans. It had become a hunting ground for monsters, with the government declaring total annihilation. Zero chance of survival. As the camera zoomed in, the truth was undeniable. These weren't just beasts, they were legendary dragons. From a helicopter high above, the devastating footage continued, but the reporter warned that this apocalypse was spreading to Japan. Whispers on the web claimed this was the manifestation of a game called Prophecy Online, a digital curse becoming flesh. Experts tried to deny the supernatural, claiming tectonic shifts were to blame, but logic was crumbling before their eyes. Suddenly, a colossal maw opened toward the news helicopter. The reporter's voice cracked with pure terror. Screams erupted over the comms. Desperate orders to pull back filled the air, but the beast was faster than their fear. Static cut the feed. The studio anchor screamed the field reporter's name, but only a chilling silence answered him. A specialist on set trembled, his scientific worldview shattered, muttering that plate tectonics could never spawn such hell. Meanwhile, on a lonely balcony, the protagonist watched the world burn with an eerie sense of calm. It has begun. While the rest of humanity panicked, his mind was clear as a frozen lake. He had been preparing for this very moment. Elsewhere, a woman frantically tapped at a holographic interface while Yu pressed the main event button on his own system window. Time limit 43 days. Location, Japan. The quests were starting, and he realized the true meaning of the game's final message. The priceless asset promised to him wasn't gold or items, it was his memories. He was the only one who had cleared the game. He possessed the ultimate walkthrough. The door to his apartment swung open, and he stepped out, transformed from a nobody into a player. A confident smirk played on his lips. The world had become his stage, and it was time to claim his reward. Competition will be fierce, he muttered, sprinting through the streets. I need to secure the farming spots first. His target was dead ahead. He rushed toward a massive structure as the civilians around him scattered like frightened ants. Public transport had collapsed. Pandemonium reigned. But he moved with a singular purpose, cutting through the crowd. Halt! A roar of anger broke his concentration. A towering figure blocked his path, forcing him to skid to a stop. He looked up, annoyed. It was a ghost from his miserable past, the loan shark who had made his life a living hell, trying to run you. The thug sneered, flicking a lit cigarette into the protagonist's face with utter disrespect. Flashback to 1 year ago. A shady company had offered an interest-free loan of 200,000 yen to selected candidates. The catch. They demanded 50% of all future earnings. Desperate for a lifeline, Yu had signed the devil's contract. He thought it was his big break. But after the money was spent, the trap snapped shut. You failed the selection, they said. Now pay us back with 50% interest in 10 days. He remembered the cold steel of a gun pressed against his temple. To survive, Yu had buried himself in bank loans, spiraling into a debt trap, while the sharks refused to let him pay. Back in the present, the thug grinned maliciously. Got the cash yet? Or are you still a broke loser? Rage simmered in Yu's eyes. How could I pay when you ignored my calls? You blocked me to rack up the interest. Excuses, always excuses, the shark laughed, gaslighting him even as the sky fell around them. You people are all the same. The thug's expression darkened. But I'm here for something else. You played that game, didn't you, Prophecy Online? He knew. The gangster had realized the world was mirroring the game's mechanics. He grabbed Yu by the collar, shaking him violently. Spill it. Tell me what you know, you little rat. The threat hung heavy in the air, but the protagonist didn't flinch. Take your filthy hands off me. The command was cold as ice. The thug blinked, stunned by the sudden defiance. You want info? Here's a lesson. Skill, activate Novice's fist. A surge of power flooded his veins. The skill boosted his attack power by 50%. His fist blurred, slamming into the gangster with the force of a truck. Crash. The loan shark flew backward, his body crumpling against a traffic sign like a broken doll. Pathetic. Yu looked down at the unconscious bleeding mess. Looks like your interest rate just hit 0. He left the trash on the sidewalk and continued his sprint. But he wasn't the only one watching the chaos unfold. Inside a black sedan, a hooded figure observed the fight. Interesting. An awakened one this early in the game. A sinister smile appeared beneath the hood. When the law collapses, the real fun begins. The shadows were watching. Finally, Yu arrived at his destination, the goat sanctuary. But his heart skipped a beat. A car was parked near the entrance. Did someone beat me to the first clear? Anxiety spiked as he descended into the dungeon. The darkness swallowed him whole. Then the metallic scent of blood hit his nose. Before him lay a massacre of lizardmen. Standing amidst the carnage, the cloaked figure's eyes locked onto Yu, realizing a third party had entered the fray. With a sneer, he asks if our hero is a so-called prophet, his tone dripping with arrogance as he questions their contribution. He claims those were high-tier nightmares, insisting the protagonist would be monster chow without his gracious intervention. Endo starts to doubt, knowing those lizards were bottom feeders, the absolute trash of the dungeon hierarchy. Removing his hood to reveal a smug grin, Light notes that Endo seems like a loner and offers him a spot as a lackey. The deal is extortion. 50% of all loot goes to Light, promising protection from a self-proclaimed powerhouse. His minions gaze at him with brainwashed adoration, but Yu politely declines, preferring the path of the solo player. Pointing toward the ominous darkness ahead, Yu challenges their confidence in facing the boss, leaving them stunned. Whispering to his team, Light debates whether murdering Endo is necessary once the boss falls, sparking nervous tension. He declares that information control is key, and anyone who defies his will meets a tragic, accidental end. A wave of dread washes over the group, the heavy atmosphere suffocating them as the leader issues his commands. He identifies the boss as the Ember Goat, warning the protagonist not to steal the last hit on the prize. With only 5 minutes remaining until the gates unseal, the lackeys surround Endo, blocking his path with hostility. A trembling girl and 2 thugs step forward, asking with forced bravado if he plans to interfere. They demand he stay put, and while he knows he could crush them like insects, he decides to show mercy today. The massive gates grind open, and the protagonist smirks, calculating that he can simply clean up the mess after they die. As the timer hits 0 and the doors part, he casually pulls a juice from his inventory, the picture of relaxation. Leaning against the cold stone, he listens to the gates slam shut, waiting for the screams to begin. Inside, the raid leader scoffs, thinking it convenient that the coward didn't join their formation. The girl worries the protagonist sensed their murderous intent, but Light dismisses him as too dim-witted to notice. They step into a colossal, void-like hall, illuminated only by a single ominous beam of light from above. Light barks orders at his tank, commanding the shield-bearer to take point and do his job. The tank boasts that his defense is impenetrable, addressing his leader with reverence as purple flames flicker to life. Suddenly, a gale-force wind slams into the party, throwing them into confusion as the atmosphere turns heavy. A terrifying vortex of fire erupts before their eyes, and for the first time the leader feels the icy grip of fear. A massive demonic paw slashes through the inferno, revealing the true nightmare, the Hellfire Goat. It was a grotesque chimera part goat, wolf, and horse, unleashing a roar that shook the very foundations of the dungeon. Shockwaves and searing heat explode outward, sending warriors flying as devastation rains down upon them. Light is hurled against the sealed entrance, cursing his luck as the plan disintegrates into chaos. The monster halts right in front of him, and when the terrified girl asks for orders, his facade cracks. He screams at her to shut up, ordering a retreat, only to hear his subordinate cry out that the door is sealed tight. Denial washes over him. He screams frantically, ordering his meat shields to distract the beast. He insists the tank can block the blow, completely ignoring the sheer disparity in power level. The shield-bearer tries to protest, but his leader's command overrides his survival instinct, forcing him forward. Trembling, the tank raises his defense, as the creature lifts a hammer that looks like it could crush mountains. There is no contest. The hammer descends, obliterating the man in a gruesome display of overwhelming force. Terror seizes the survivors as they scramble like rats, leaving their fallen comrade broken on the stone floor. The demonic beast reaches down, plucking the tank's shield from the ground with terrifying dexterity. To their horror, it shoves the steel into its maw, crunching down as if the metal were nothing but a cracker. Light realizes the catastrophic truth. This isn't the weak boss they expected, but a nightmare beyond their league. He connects the dots. The update reverted the dungeon to its original un-nerfed state, the legendary Hellfire Goat. Despair sets in as he realizes they are trapped in the game's brutal version 1.0 difficulty. Remembering the protagonist outside, Light clings to a shred of hope that the outsider can breach the door. He pounds on the steel, screaming, begging Yu to open up, promising to split the reward he planned to steal. Silence answers him, and as he rages at the door, a shadow looms behind him, signaling the end. In a heartbeat, Light glanced back, only to see death rushing toward him as the beast tore through everything in its path. It crushed his subordinates like insects, tossing them aside, broken and bleeding. As the shadow loomed over him, he trembled at its overwhelming power. They were doomed to total annihilation. Desperate, he scrambled to open the dungeon gate, but Endu merely scoffed. "Is that really the best you can do? After all your big talk, you aren't fit to lead anyone." A devilish smirk played on our swindler's lips as he faced the beast. Even at death's door, Light cursed him, his mind racing with malice. He decided to sacrifice the protagonist to save his own skin. He screamed for a retreat, but Endu wasn't about to let that happen. With a swift kick, he tripped the girl. Leaving so soon, bad idea. As she hit the cold floor, she saw the exit ceiling shut. While Endu stood firm, the so-called leader sprinted for the gap, his mind screaming a desperate prayer for survival. Just as he reached for freedom, the stone slab slammed down, crushing his arm. His agonizing scream echoed as the monster loomed over him. "You noisy little brat," the beast growled. Raising its weapon, it decided to silence this irritating pest once and for all. Light stared into the abyss of death. There was no escape. In an instant, a torrent of crimson blood sprayed across the chamber. The gruesome sight froze the others in their tracks. Trembling in fear, the survivors wondered how they could possibly defy such a nightmare. Against a beast of that caliber, hope seemed lost. But Endu calmly picked up a discarded sword. "The solution," he murmured, "is obvious." He inspected the blade. Light was trash, but his equipment, top tier. "That's all someone like me needs." The monster hefted its massive hammer, sneering at the new challenger. Another bug eager to be squashed. It brought the hammer down with earth-shattering force. Stone fragments exploded like shrapnel, but the protagonist was already gone. He materialized atop the beast, a mocking grin on his face. Squashed, who me? He prepared to unleash hell. In the blink of an eye, steel flashed. Slashes erupted across the monster's body, and with a howl of pain, its massive horns crashed to the floor. The survivors stared, paralyzed by this impossible display of strength. Calmly, Endu turned to them. "So what do you think?" The swindler's eyes gleamed with greed. "For 10 million yen, I might just consider saving your worthless lives." The girl stared her brain, failing to process the absurdity. 10 million, she and her companion shrieked in unison. "Are you insane?" "Precision matters," he replied. "I'll discount it to 1 million per person." Frustrated, they argued back. Who carries that kind of cash? They accused him of extortion in the face of death. Endu shrugged. "No cash, no problem. There is another way. You can pay with your labor." He leaned in, voice cold. "Unless you prefer to die here so young and full of potential, you'll work for me. I take 90% of your earnings." The girl screamed in outrage. "Stop treating us like slaves." "Even that scumbag, Light only took 50%, her friend cried. But the monster rose behind them, casting a dark shadow. Tick-tock, Endu grinned. The beast roared fury, radiating from its form. "Who dared to sever my horns?" It unleashed a cataclysmic ball of fire. "Die 1,000 deaths," it bellowed. The girl desperately cast a shielding spell, bracing for the inferno. But the protagonist plunged straight into the flames. The shockwave blasted the others back, but Endu landed perfectly in front of them. He smirked, brushing off the ash. "You survived round 1. But how long until your luck runs out?" Broken by fear, they crumbled. "Fine, we'll do it, just save us." Endu's smile widened. The negotiation was a success. "We have a deal." He turned his gaze to the beast, eyes narrowing. "It's been a long time since I crushed one of these." The monster scowled. "Defeated me. I've never lost to a weakling like you." The subordinates looked on, bewildered. "What is he saying?" they whispered. The Hellfire Goat was removed from the game before anyone could ever clear it. Endu ignored them, his focus razor sharp. He remembered. Before the update in the era of the grind, he had soloed this boss. Rumor has it, he mused that the Hellfire Goat was just reskinned into the Blaze Goat. With a casual flick of his wrist, he deflected the monster's strike. The beast froze its mind, unable to process the parry. It defied all logic. The subordinates watched in awe, the question burning in their minds. Who in the world is Endu? I'll admit, the protagonist taunted, "If that hit me, I'd be dead. My stats are trash after all. But your attacks," he grinned. "They're useless once I see the pattern." The monster roared, launching a flurry of blows. Endu danced through the storm, dodging and blocking with unnatural grace. The beast's frustration boiled over into pure rage. Impossible, it thought. But the protagonist had already vanished, reappearing behind it, blade poised to strike. He slashed the monster's eyes, just like the simulation. As he landed, his new employees realized the tide had turned. He was actually pushing the boss back. They began to cheer wildly for his victory. Endu clicked his tongue in annoyance. "You're too loud, quiet down," one subordinate grumbled. "He's so frustrating." Suddenly a wave of energy slashed past them. To Endu's surprise, the behemoth slammed its massive hammer into the earth. But the protagonist was already gone. "Your evasion skills are commendable," the monster growled. "But this is where your story ends." Back against the wall, the player seemed cornered. He calmly asked the infernal goat if trapping him was the plan all along. Ignoring the taunt, the beast demanded any final words. With a cold smile, the protagonist simply replied, "Drop dead." After all, the beast hadn't landed a single hit on him yet. Enraged by the disrespect, the monster roared, "I will grant your death wish." Abyssal flames erupted around its massive frame. It opened its maw, concentrating a sphere of pure devastation in the center. The subordinates trembled, witnessing the black flames of ruin. Endu realized the danger instantly. This was the flame that incinerated everything capable of melting a level 99 player in seconds. An area of effect attack that scorched the very earth, leaving zero escape routes. This was the boss's ultimate move, its desperate last resort. But with a purple gleam of mana in his eyes, he grinned. "No big deal," he scoffed. "I've been waiting for this exact moment." He activated his movement skill, channeling just 50% of his strength into his legs. A flash of light exploded where he stood. Skillfully, he launched himself toward the monster. A powerful attack, he noted, but it leaves the caster completely defenseless. And besides, he added, analyzing the enemy, its jaw muscles have nowhere near the durability of its body armor. Positioning himself on the ceiling to maximize gravity, he declared, in other words, even level 1 strength is enough to shut you up. Driving his weapon downwards, he slammed the monster's mouth shut from above. The beast crashed to the floor, desperately trying to open its jaws. But the flames were already unleashed inside. Endu landed exhausted but victorious. Once that ability triggers, it can't be stopped. Now there was nothing left for the monster to do but swallow its own destruction. The inferno raged, burning it from the inside out. He leaped back, creating distance from the heat. Let's see if you can withstand your own hellfire, he taunted. From a safe distance, the party watched in awe as the monster was consumed by its own ultimate attack. It was a brutal execution. He bid the creature a cold farewell. The Hellfire Goat finally forced its mouth open, but only a death scream escaped. Moments later, the beast was reduced to a pile of ash. The system notified unique boss the Hellfire Goat has been defeated. The girl and her companion stood frozen, unable to believe they were still breathing. They looked at the protagonist. He had soloed the boss without a scratch. The system flooded his vision with congratulations. It announced Endu was the first player to ever slay a unique boss. He was awarded the legendary title, the First Slayer. This confused him slightly. He didn't recall this achievement existing in the original game. The title granted a massive 50% damage buff against all future bosses. But the rewards didn't stop there. It was time to choose a secondary class. The system prompted, select secondary occupation now. Without hesitation, he replied, confirm. The system warned that once chosen, the class could never be changed. But his eyes were filled with determination. I choose the path of the soulsmith. He extended his hand, resolute. Suddenly, a brilliant pillar of light enveloped him. As the light faded, he smirked. Looks like I'm about to make a fortune. He turned his attention to the boss's loot drops. He looted a dagger and a rusted key. The girl identified it immediately. That's the key to the underground sewer. The best power leveling zone. Her companion added that their original goal was the ultra-rare drop from this boss. They stared at the key with envy. Endu started spinning the key casually on his finger. This junk isn't rare, he explained. For the Hellfire Goat, the drop rate is actually 100%. They were horrified by how casually he treated an item most players would kill for. To him, it was just trash loot. Looking at the dagger, however, he realized his luck was actually insane. Endu walked over to a pile of rubble. As he pointed the blade, blue and yellow, sparks of energy crackled along the edge. With a lazy flick of his wrist, he slashed downward. The solid stone was sliced cleanly in half like butter. Both subordinates stared in shock. What kind of god-tier weapon is that? It's still not good enough, he muttered. He activated his new class ability, hoping the crafting requirements were simple. Secondary occupation might sound optional to most players, but Endu explained that for him, this was the true endgame. The Soulsmith class allowed him to use soul fragments to forge and enhance gear. It was the only path to breaking the game's limits. This is the only job that lets me reach the absolute pinnacle. The protagonist activated his soul sight skill. Analyzing the sword, he discovered it could be awakened using a soul fragment from an F-rank mage. He glanced at the girl. She was a mage class. He realized he could extract a fragment from her via contract without harming her. It was perfect. I wish I knew this before I agreed to the 90-10 split, he sighed. He thrust the dagger into the ground. There is still something I can use, he thought. Looking at the two stunned players, he asked, you two want this key for leveling, right? Confused, they asked if he was really willing to trade it. Sure, Endu said, but in exchange, you have to farm every item on this list for me. He slightly reduced their fee to sweeten the deal. The two players were ecstatic, bowing and thanking him profusely for the generosity. The protagonist dismissed their gratitude coldly. He reminded them that their growth only fueled his own fortune. The conditions for extraction were finally met. From the fallen F-rank mage, he tore away a precious soul fragment. Now Endu was ready. He invoked the Soulsmith ability. At his command, the blade began to awaken, glowing with a blinding radiance as shards of energy swirled into a vortex of pure power. The steel transformed, taking on a deep, ominous violet hue. A system notification flashed before his eyes. A new skill, Soul Slash. Eager to test this destructive potential, he unleashed the technique while his lackeys watched in trembling fear. One swing. That was all it took to sever reality itself. The wave of force didn't just cut, it obliterated the very structure of the warehouse walls, exposing the forest beyond. The subordinates gaped at the destruction, their minds unable to comprehend such devastating might. To release such cataclysmic pressure with a mere dagger, they sank to their knees, wondering if they were looking at a human or a monster. Yet gazing at the blade, he merely scoffed. It seemed this was its limit. Turning his cold gaze toward the girl, Endu spoke. With a weapon forged and his skills honed, he was ready for the next stage of his evolution. Then he moved. He stopped directly in front of Ruby. Terror gripped her heart. She shielded her face, certain that her life was about to end. But then, Endu simply walked past her. Leaving her paralyzed in confusion, he crouched down beside the corpses of his former companions. He bowed his head as if in prayer. Ruby watched, captivated by his solemnity. Was he mourning the fallen? Offering them peace? Not a chance. The protagonist was strictly business. He was looting the wallets of these extras, the shameless thief began, grinning greedily, counting their cash. In that moment, Ruby realized he was far more dangerous than any Hellfire Goat. Elsewhere, black feathers rained from the sky like dark snow. Crows circled ominously around an ancient shrine, watching a lone figure. It was Endu. He surveyed the gate before calmly approaching the descent. As he stepped into the darkness of the well, he noted that a massive horde of monsters lurked below. Normally, this was a death trap for anything less than a three-man party, but rules didn't apply to Endu. Not when he wielded the goat dagger. Upon reaching the bottom of the abyss, he scanned the shadows. Suddenly, a sharp whistle cut the air. A coin flew toward him, but he sliced it in midair, splitting it perfectly in two. He shifted into a combat stance, raising his dagger as he sensed a hostile presence. His eyes narrowed in irritation. 3 men stepped out of the gloom, sneering at the new visitor. The leader wore a look of pure bloodlust. He claimed this hunting ground belonged to them. Endu leveled his blade at the thugs, coolly asking who made such a rule. First come, first served, the man spat. That's the law of the jungle, isn't it? Another chimed in, offering a deal. They would let him hunt for a price. Realizing these vultures were just like him, Endu asked for their rate, 50,000 yen per hour. A steep fee, but Endu calculated he would still turn a massive profit. He tossed the cash to the men. Smirking, they accepted the bribe. You have 1 hour. Clock starts now. Endu ignored them and ventured deeper into the wolves' cavern. A chilling howl echoed through the cave. A white wolf lunged from the darkness, and in a heartbeat he was completely surrounded. Dozens of glowing eyes stared back. Diamond wolves. Mid-level monsters, and an absolute goldmine for farming. This cave was the only spawn point for such a large pack. He considered using the soul blade but decided to conserve his mana. Better to save the trump card. The pack leaped as one. Endu didn't flinch. He charged to meet them in a blur of speed. Steel flashed. He weaved through the horde, a whirlwind of death. Heads rolled and bodies fell as he carved a path through the pack. Silence returned to the cavern. He sat amidst the mountain of corpses to catch his breath, a satisfied smile on his face. Too easy, he murmured. But suddenly a shadow loomed behind him. It was one of the gatekeepers from before. The thug struck with killing intent. Endu reacted instantly, raising his dagger to block the cowardly blow with ease. He launched a counterstrike. The man barely dodged, but the force of Endu's blow struck the cavern ceiling, instead triggering a massive explosion. Rubble rained down. The enemy stepped back, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. That was close, he grunted. Endu noted the man's reaction speed. He had combat experience. The protagonist stared down the brute, his eyes cold. Playing dirty, aren't we? Endu taunted. Waiting for me to clear the dungeon and lower my guard before you strike. The thug grinned manically. I love it when prey struggles. Endu realized their true game wasn't the toll fee. It was a trap. They waited for players to gather loot, then killed them to steal it all. The group leader stepped forward, clapping slowly. Sharp kid. You figured it out. Endu smiled back. This is a secret farming spot. It would be strange if I was the only one here. If you wanted to deceive me, Endu mocked, you should have planned a better performance. In truth, Endu had only realized their intent after spotting their gear. He locked eyes on the big guy's hands. He was equipping knuckle dusters, the famous rocket punches. High risk, short range, but they amplified impact force devastatingly. It all depends on the user's velocity. He analyzes the assassin's weapon. A blade that slices through the air using vibration magic. But that ring on the leader's finger? That is a truly malevolent artifact. Feigning an apology, the leader offers compensation for the trouble. Reaching into his coat, he scatters hundreds of coins like feeding stray dogs. Endu flinches as the metal rains down. But beneath the shock, a cold fury ignites within him. 10,000 yen, tossed aside like trash. It is an insult to his very existence. The ring flares with an ominous light. Oops, my hand slipped, he sneers. Be a good boy and pick them up. Seeing through the cheap trap, the hunter asks a simple question. Is your pride really worth this much effort? He knows the ring's secret. Those coins are merely catalysts for violent explosions. He scoffs, wondering if these fools truly underestimate him. Tossing his dagger skyward, he delivers the verdict. You tried to hunt a predator of a higher rank. None of you leave this place alive. The trio surrounds him, mocking his confidence. 3 against 1. Do you have a death wish? While gripping his weapon, Endu smirks. Even combined, you aren't worth a single yen. Rage twists the leader's face into a demon's mask. With a glare, the man snaps his fingers. Trap activated. Boom. A massive blast tears through the area. The leader screams for blood. Tear him limb from limb, until he is nothing but meat. The tank-like brute materializes behind him for the kill. Endu evades the lethal blow, with a hair's breadth to spare. But mid-air, a new threat emerges. The speedster is already there. I'm bad at holding back, he cackles. Clang. Steel meets steel as the hunter blocks the strike. Blows rain down on his back, pummeling his defenses. But shock washes over them. With a single fluid motion, the player hurls them both away like ragdolls. Eyes locking onto the leader, Endu delivers his judgment. You broke the 50,000 yen pact. Now the price has gone up. He launches a barrage of strikes, a predator toying with prey. I'll repay you with interest, he grins. But my currency is pain. Explosive coins rain from the sky. From above, the battlefield is clear. The protagonist stands resolute in the eye of the storm. His blade is raised. The grunts are grounded, but the leader remains defiant. The long-haired mage triggers his explosive rain once more. Endu dances through the blasts, wasting zero movement. But the assassin strikes from the blind spot. Death comes from above. Effortlessly, he parries the furious assault. But the assassin's rage turns to absolute ice-cold terror. His prized blade shatters like glass. Before his brain can process the impossible, the hunter's counter-strike lands. Watching the devastation, the leader trembles. Is that dagger a legendary artifact? While Endu holds off the trio, the leader's mind races. This is within calculations, he lies to himself. Someone like him cannot defeat us. Not today. The player weaves through the explosive chaos. Fury burns in his chest. How dare they treat money as trash? The brute ambushes him again, aiming for a critical hit. Endu dodges, triggering a cataclysmic detonation. Boom. The blast wave force is so intense that even the enemies must shield themselves. The player's blade spins in the air. It falls like a silent herald of defeat. The giant roars in triumph, thinking the battle is won. A great challenge indeed. You should learn restraint, his ally scoffs. Even the swordsman admits the intruder was a monster. A worthy opponent finally silenced. The long-haired leader stoops to claim the fallen loot. A god-tier weapon is useless in the hands of a corpse. Or so he thinks. Suddenly, skill-activated soul restriction. Ethereal chains burst forth, binding the brute and the assassin instantly. Only the leader remains free, paralyzed by pure dread. Agony tears through his subordinates as the chains constrict. He screams their names in panic. Like a reaper emerging from the smoke, the player reveals the truth. I used my soulsmith authority. Prepare for pain beyond your imagination. Cornered, the enraged leader lunges with the stolen dagger. But before he can strike, an iron grip crushes his momentum. Too slow. Endu whispers. Madness takes the leader's eyes. I will not lose. He leaps back, coat flying open to unleash a coin storm. Confidently, the leader commands him to witness his power. Be amazed, he shrieks. But the hunter's patience has evaporated. Soul restriction, reactivate. In a heartbeat, the arrogance is shackled. Chains wrap his throat, choking off his scream. The man struggles in vain. Why won't it work? Endu looks down with cold eyes. The level gap is too vast. Your power is nullified. Still, bound, the man gasps. What gap? I am level 7. But the chains tighten mercilessly. For a beginner, the player muses darkly. You did well enough. Endu scans their status windows, calculating the loot. To harvest their soul fragments, specific conditions must be met. The giant needed food. The assassin wanted an introduction to his sister. But the leader, his condition was to feel genuine fear. The protagonist's eyes glow with predatory intent. That is a wish I can grant immediately. His grip tightens on the leader's throat. As the man begs for mercy, the player raises his blade. It's time to pay the price. Leaving you alive puts me at a financial disadvantage. The terrified thug stammers, failing to grasp the dark implication. Endu clarifies coldly. Organs sell fast on the black market. The realization hits them, he intends to harvest them for parts. 50,000 yen plus interest. The skinny gangster screams in protest, claiming a mere freelancer lacks the connections for such dark dealings. You're bluffing, and nobody like you can't access the underworld market. Endu shrugs with chilling indifference. If you doubt my methods, find another way to pay. Pure terror shatters the leader's resolve. He grovels, tears streaming down his face. Asterisk. Ding times. The system resonates. Target K is consumed by despair. Conditions met. Mage's soul fragment acquired. Reward secured. With a thought, the binding chains vanish. The thugs collapse, gasping for air like fish out of water. He tosses a stack of papers at them. Sign. They read the terms and explode in rage, 90% of their earnings. You want us to be slaves. But Andu's eyes flash with murderous intent. Do you have a complaint? Their defiance crumbles instantly. No, sir. From this day forth, their lives belong to him. Betray me, he whispers, and you wake up on the operating table. Then he shifts the topic. Take me to your master. The color drains from their faces. How? How did you know? Andu scoffs at their stupidity. Trash mobs like you couldn't possibly own such high-tier artifacts. Who is the puppet master pulling your strings? Kaki falls to his knees, trembling. If the boss finds out we talked, he'll slaughter us all. Andu steps on his head. You have a choice. Face his wrath later, or let me carve out your kidneys right now. The skinny thug snaps. I won't die here. He scrambles away, weeping in a desperate attempt to flee. The player sighs, pointing a single finger. Did you really think you could outrun my range? The soul restriction chains erupt from the ground, ensnaring the runaway. The others watch in horror. As the chains squeeze the life out of their friend, they break. We'll talk. We'll take you to the boss. Andu smiles, looting their weapons and cash. Security in this dimension is laughable compared to my world. A devilish grin spreads across his face. No one left to challenge me. His status window glows, confirming his godlike growth. Meanwhile, twilight falls over a twisted carnival. Beneath the big top, a tightrope walker balances above rings of fire. But in the shadows, brutality unfolds. A man is beaten mercilessly, collapsing into a pool of his own blood. Spectators in cages watch in despair. He's finished, they whisper, mourning their own grim fate. A scarred enforcer sneers at the broken victim. You failed the mission. Beg the boss for mercy before you die. From the cage, a prisoner screams, Stop, you'll kill him. The enforcer grins sadistically. Let him die. Weakness only causes our boss unnecessary grief. The whip wielder prepares another strike. Why is my name in your filthy mouth? A voice cuts through the air. The sadist freezes, stammering, B-boss. The clown prince of this criminal empire emerges. Are you done disciplining him? He gently lifts the battered man. Broken bones take months to heal. The clown chides softly. Inefficiency is a sin. Do not break my tools. The sadistic enforcer sweats, profusely bowing in terror. I apologize, sir. It won't happen again. The victim weeps with relief. Thank you, boss. I swear next time I'll times crack asterisk. The whip lashes out faster than sight. The man is silenced instantly, struck down by an overwhelming blow. I prefer shredding flesh. The clown laughs maniacally, continuing the assault. Skin heals faster than bone. He beats the man into a pulp. Not even an animal shelter would take and trash this lazy. Sir, they've returned, a lookout announces. The clown freezes, his painted smile twisting into a scowl. The three thugs stumble in, looking like they went through a war zone. Report, the long-haired one gasps. The clown's eyes dart to the man's hand. The ring is gone. His aura flares with explosive rage. Where is my ring? His voice drops to a demonic growl. That artifact is worth more than your worthless lives. We were robbed, the thug wails, bowing low. It was a monster, a demon in human skin. Asterisk wham times. The boss kicks him across the room. Excuses. My guild is surrounded by incompetent scum. The subordinates tremble, knowing that most of their comrades fled specifically to escape this tyrant's madness. There is only one use left for trash like you. The clown turns to his beast tamer. Locke, bring him out. It's feeding time. A massive white paw steps into the light. The tiger Johnny stares at the men with hungry eyes. A low guttural growl vibrated through the air. Trembling in absolute terror, the subordinate fell to his knees, begging the boss for mercy, crying out that he had always been loyal from the very beginning. But with a twisted smile, the clown ignored him, commanding his beast Johnny to feast. The massive tiger unhinged its jaws, lunging straight for Cookie, who stood paralyzed by the shadow of death. Suddenly, a silhouette cut through the air, swinging from the high circus apparatus. It was the protagonist. With godlike strength, he intercepted the beast, delivering a devastating kick that sent the predator flying. The massive animal crashed into the distance. Panicked, the boss ignored his men and screamed out the beast's name, but the player simply smiled. He apologized mockingly, stating he couldn't let a valuable source of income die. As the boss rushed to his precious pet, cooing and comforting the frightened beast, a desperate Cookie turned to Andu, asking why he took so long to arrive. But the swindler just shrugged, complaining that there wasn't enough loot to be found. Seizing the opening, the boss launched a surprise attack from behind his whip, snapping like a viper. However, the protagonist didn't even turn around. In a split second, his blade sang and the whip fell to the ground in useless shreds. The clown froze, sweat forming on his brow as true fear set in. He stammered, demanding to know who this monster was. As his blade pulsed with ominous purple energy, Andu declared himself the new boss. Outraged, the clown turned to his men, demanding their gratitude. But the men scoffed. Why be grateful? They only obeyed out of fear, and right now, the protagonist was far more terrifying than a circus clown. Staring him down, the main character pointed to the caged men, asking if he hurt them. Endu made an offer, sign a contract, and he would shield them from this weakling. The man who had nearly been eaten asked if there was a way out of this living hell. With a malicious, calculating grin, the protagonist promised their freedom, but announced to everyone that he would only take 50% of their earnings. This enraged his current subordinates as he charged them a much higher rate. Annoyed, he reminded them that the tax was high because they tried to kill him earlier. Trembling with pure rage, the clown demanded to know if he planned to steal his men. After hurting his pet, his eyes glowing with purple mana, he vowed to slaughter all four of them where they stood. Endu coolly reminded him they were in Japan, asking since when such barbarism was allowed, pulling an ID from his inventory. The clown sneered. He held the power because of this, a guildmaster ID and a special certificate from the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications. The protagonist raised an eyebrow, surprised this clown was a guildmaster. The enemy explained that the Japanese government granted guild leaders authority above the law within conquered dungeons. Andre boasted that not even the police could touch him here. In Japan, power meant immunity. With a dark grin, Endu asked if that meant becoming a guildmaster would let him conduct shady business without consequences. The clown called the protagonist a fool. He drew a gun, explaining that to reach his status, one had to be at least rank B. Leveling the barrel at the protagonist, the guildmaster sneered that dead men didn't need to know anything else. The gunfire erupted, promising to turn him into a sieve. But Endu merely stared as the bullets rained down. The protagonist activated his skill Soul Barrier, a shield unlocked at level 25, fueled by Type E magical soul fragments. While continuing to fire, the clown cursed and praised him in the same breath, calling Endu a clever rat. The protagonist remarked that Russia had used nuclear missiles during the ice test and still failed. He asked the guildmaster if he had never stopped to think about why no high-level players used firearms. Still pulling the trigger, the boss screamed at him not to approach. Suddenly, a massive shockwave forced him to drop his weapon. The barrier wasn't just defending, it was moving finally. Reaching him, it began to crush him against the wall. Desperately, he pushed back against the invisible force trying to stop it, but it kept moving. The protagonist coldly told him to take a good look at his situation. Straining against the crushing weight, he realized he was being flattened. He was pinned completely against the wall, the stone cracking under the immense pressure. The man started spitting blood, while Endu laughed maniacally. Finally, the protagonist released the barrier and the former guildmaster slumped to the ground, powerless. Looking down at the broken man, Endu declared that abilities would always surpass weapons. Andre was a fool to think he could win with mere toys. The former subordinates whispered in awe, realizing even their boss was nothing against this monster. With a smile, the protagonist proposed a deal. He promised that if they agreed to his terms, he would even grant them a little bonus. Their revenge. They all accepted the contract immediately, on the condition that they could do whatever they wanted with the scoundrel lying on the ground. The defeated master wheezed, asking how a person without a license could do this, claiming the authorities wouldn't stay quiet. Endu simply shrugged. He didn't care. After all, the man himself had said, power is everything in this new world. Still with his head down, the clown heard footsteps approaching. Dread filled him. When he lifted his head, he realized it was all of his own subordinates. As the men began to brutally beat their former boss, the player calculated his profits, thinking about the money he made today and how much more they would generate in the future. Glancing at the system window, he decided it was time to finish the test. Cold sweat trickled down his spine as the realization hit him. Only 1 month remained. He had to act now, and the destination was the headquarters. This was the heart of the player association. The atmosphere buzzed with tension as the awakening exam commenced. He stepped into the hall, destiny waiting, but then whispers drifted from behind him. 3 aspirants were gossiping. Listen, if you hit rank B or higher, you're looking at a salary in the tens of millions of yen. Don't be a fool, his friend scoffed, crushing the dream. Only the top 1% of Japan reaches rank B and rank A. There are only 9 of them in the entire country. They chattered on, unaware of the monster standing before them. Endo simply listened, his expression unreadable. But the facts of this new world were undeniable. It had been 2 weeks since the descent. Since the game became our reality. The government posted a bounty of 100 million yen to end the trial. But the result was a massacre. A catastrophic failure. That is why the Player Association now mandates registration, consolidating power, controlling the chaos. No badge, no reward. That was the rule. As he walked toward the entrance, thoughts of fortune raced through his mind. 100 million yen. He wanted his cut, but suddenly, a prickling sensation on the back of his neck. Someone was watching him from the rooftops, killing intent. His eyes darted upward, locking onto the threat. An object hurtled toward him with deadly speed. But to him, it moved in slow motion. He sidestepped effortlessly. Asterisk. Crash asterisk. The crowd gasped in horror. A traffic cone fell from the sky. Someone could have died. You lived comfortably before, didn't you? A voice dripped with malice from above. It was Takuo. Don't think you can escape your debt just because the world ended. The protagonist looked up unimpressed. The loan shark is taking the exam too, Takuo sneered, looking down on him. A weakling with the novice fist skill should just give up. One hit from me would end you, Takuo boasted. He was convinced of his superiority. I'm not the man I used to be. I've awakened the strongest class, the spearman. Silence followed. Then the protagonist burst into laughter. Strongest. That class is for amateurs who just want to poke things with a stick. His laughter was mocking, cutting deep. The spearman class can't keep up with power inflation, he stated cold-heartedly. Takuo's face twisted in rage. And what class do you have, trash? The loan shark demanded with a wicked glare. Novice Endo replied calmly. Takuo roared with laughter. Novice. That's the same as being classless. The player smirked internally. Asterisk. My main class is novice, sure. Asterisk. Asterisk. But there's no need to reveal my subclass to the likes of you. Asterisk. Takuo raised the traffic sign like a weapon. I'll take my revenge for the other day. Witness the true might of a spearman. The attack came a storm of strikes aimed to cripple. But to the protagonist, it was like watching a child flail. He dodged every swing without breaking a sweat, closing the distance in a blink. Takuo's eyes widened in terror. Hey Chow, how are you moving like that? Facing the trembling loan shark, Endo sighed. I really didn't want trouble before the exam, but if the trash comes to me, with a simple flick of his arm, he launched the man into the sky. Chaos erupted in the plaza. He just threw him like a rag doll. The loan shark screamed as he plummeted, crashing into the pavement. The crowd stared in disbelief. The protagonist just kept walking, dusting off his hands. Strictly self-defense. Inside the opulent lobby, the reality of capitalism struck. Registration fee is 8,000 yen. The attendant smiled. Asterisk. 8,000 asterisk. That was highway robbery. Moments later, he sat on a bench, soul crushed. Not by a monster, but by poverty. Then a shadow fell over him. A girl approached, bowing politely. Apologies for the delay, she beamed. We are ready to begin your rank certification exam. Fate was calling. He stood before it. The evaluation stone. A massive black monolith pulsing with ominous purple mana. Endo observed it keenly. Asterisk, so the rumors were true. Asterisk. Do I just touch it, he asked. He reached out his hand, inching toward the ancient artifact. As his fingers neared the surface, the reaction was instant. Rays of energy lashed out, connecting him to the stone. A blinding blue light began to swell from the core. Asterisk. Boom. Asterisk. Upon contact, a shockwave of brilliance exploded outward. The assistant shielded her eyes in panic. What is happening? The room was engulfed in a divine glow. The stone trembled, struggling to measure the power flowing into it. It wasn't just light. It was pure dominance. The woman stared mouth agape. She had never seen a reaction like this. Meanwhile, the system processed the impossible data. The results are in, she stammered, calling his name. You are equivalent to rank A. She handed him the document, her hands shaking. I assume you know, she continued nervously. Players can choose their class. The system suggests Master Swordsman, Master Mage, or even Archbishop, legendary classes. Any other player would kill for one. But Endo shook his head. I decline. The class I want isn't available yet. The woman blinked, confused. Not available? What class could possibly? I don't intend to share that information. He cut her off sharply. To change classes later, you'll need a special catalyst item, she warned. The association can assist you. No need, he replied coldly. Is that all? He asked, turning to leave. The woman panicked. Wait. This creates a problem for you. He paused. A problem. She swallowed hard. Sir, your mana levels exceed any rank A we have ever recorded, but without a defined class. The regulations force us to downgrade you to rank E, the lowest of the low. Rank E has severe restrictions, she explained. You won't be allowed to form a guild. It's a massive disadvantage. Endo scoffed. Government bureaucrats and their useless rules, he muttered, but internally his mind was racing. Asterisk. Whatever. All I need to do is power level a subordinate to rank B. Asterisk. He knew the truth of this world. Asterisk. Only one class can clear this game. Asterisk. Asterisk. And I have no intention of settling for anything less. Asterisk. Tell me, the protagonist asked, eyes sharp. Can a rank E still claim the 100 million yen reward? Why? Yes, she stuttered. Good. That's all I needed to hear. The official evaluation was brutal. His license would display the lowest tier rank E for the time being. Outside the streets buzzed with the chaotic energy of recruitment season. Guild members waved posters, like desperate merchants hunting fresh meat. Our hero watched with a wry smile, amused by their frantic desperation. Suddenly, two female recruiters approached, their eyes scanning for talent. They were hunting for rank D players. But the moment he revealed his abysmal E-rank status, their interest evaporated instantly. Their polite rejection was dripping with pity. He saw it clearly to them, low rankers were nothing more than pests to be ignored. He shrugged off their disdain, his pride untouched. But then a presence cut through the crowd like a razor blade. A man in a sharp suit approached his body, wreathed in a blazing orange aura. His eyes glowed with the same intense mana locking onto Endu. The stranger closed the distance, his voice smooth as velvet. A pleasure to meet you, Player Re. He extended a business card with a flourish. It bore the emblem of Genesis Wings, a name that commanded absolute respect. Whispers erupted from the crowd. Was this truly the strongest guild? And was this man the legendary gamer known as the Stinker? Endu raised an eyebrow at the bizarre nickname. The man chuckled awkwardly, admitting it was his old handle from the gaming era. This guy was a celebrity in the hunter world. Endu calculated his odds, befriending him could be profitable. What do you want? Shinji. Before Shinji could answer, a shadow fell over them. The lone shark Tako barged in, demanding the legendary gamer's attention. Tako sneered, boasting of his rank B status. He claimed he wouldn't be swayed by bad choices, his arrogance overflowing. Endu analyzed the thug instantly. Rank B. Unlikely. He probably bullied the examiner. Shinji, however, looked unimpressed. The lone shark whistled for backup, summoning a young girl. Enraged by being ignored, Tako grabbed Shinji by the tie, threatening violence. A fatal mistake. With a single fluid motion, Shinji twisted the thug's arm. He forced the bully to his knees, dominating him effortlessly. Shinji's voice turned ice cold. The clock of destruction is ticking. I have no time to waste on trash like you. Humiliated and in pain, Tako scrambled away, shouting empty threats over his shoulder. The nuisance had been purged. Shinji smoothed his suit, apologizing for the interruption. Endu waved it off. The lone shark was a stain on his day as well. Now Endu asked, his gaze sharp. Why would a predator like you bother with a rank E nobody? Shinji laughed, but his eyes remained serious. You're only rank E because you refuse to advance your class. I know the truth. Endu smirked. It seems the Hunter Association has a leaking problem. Their incompetence was almost impressive. Shinji's expression darkened. With Japan's end drawing near, protocols are flexible. He cut to the chase. Work with us. He slid a check across the space payment for information. Endu stared at the numbers. 10 million yen. It was a fortune he had once possessed. Internally, his greed screamed, take it, but outwardly, he remained stone-faced. He pushed the check back. I have no interest in joining a guild. Shinji wasn't deterred. Strong men don't settle for scraps, he noted with respect. Then he played his ace. Genesis Wings is backed by the government and global elites. Our information network is absolute. Endu's interest peaked. Then tell me, he challenged. Find the player who completed the impossible game Prophecy Online. Shinji smiled, shaking his head. That is a myth. No human has ever cleared that game. Endu's demeanor shattered. Irritation flared into a terrifying aura. Then I have no use for you. The sudden spike in killing intent froze Shinji's blood. He quickly scribbled a number, handing it over with trembling fingers. Call me if you change your mind. As Endu walked away, Shinji slumped against a wall. Why had he folded so easily? Was he worried about the guild's image? No. It was something far more primal. Shinji realized he was shaking. His instincts had screamed at him to flee. Standing before that man, he felt like prey in the presence of a predator. He had nearly soiled himself in sheer terror. Suddenly, Endu turned back, patting his shoulder. He handed Shinji a slip of paper, confusing the elite hunter. If you ever need help, Endu said, his voice calm, call me. My rates are high, but I deliver. Shinji took the paper, dazed and confused. Who in the world was this monster disguised as a rookie? Later, at the towering headquarters of Genesis Wings. The atmosphere was heavy with power. Shinji rushed to the top floor. He entered the master's sanctum, formally announcing his return. The chair swiveled, revealing a woman of striking beauty and power. So she began, her voice commanding. How was the newbie, the one the association calls the strongest? Shinji swallowed hard, the fear still fresh in his mind. He is, undeniably, a monster. He was the only player to ever make me feel true fear. The memory of those cold eyes made him shudder. The guildmaster leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. Is he stronger than me? Shinji hesitated, his silence echoing louder than any words. Shinji bowed his head in apology, but Suino cut him off with a cold stare. Save your breath. Your duty is absolute transparency, not making excuses. To report without concealment. She sighed, leaning back in her chair. Among the 10 Transcendent Players, I am merely the tail of the dragon. It is no surprise that monsters exist above me. Her eyes narrowed. These 10 individuals represent the absolute apex of humanity. The chosen elites from the beta test of Prophecy Online. The ones who claimed the cash prizes. She paused, her expression darkening. But in this new era, where the game has bled into reality, the appearance of a single anomaly can shatter the entire power hierarchy. She tapped the desk rhythmically. You returned alone. The negotiation was a failure, I presume. Shinji flinched. It seems the protagonist has no interest in our petty information. Our intel meant nothing to him. Even the 10 million yen offer was brushed aside like dust. She crossed her arms, analyzing the situation. If he truly stands among the 10 Transcendent Players, wealth and glory will chase him, not the other way around. A king cannot masquerade as a pauper forever. No Transcendent would willingly remain a rookie. She began to pace the room. However, there are cursed artifacts that grant immense power at a terrible cost. Her gaze pierced through Shinji like a spear. Regardless, you must observe him with your own eyes. If your instincts are sharp and this man is the real deal, he is destined to become the sovereign of this world. She stopped pacing. There is only one candidate for that title, the unknown entity among the 10. Shinji swallowed hard sweat forming on his brow. Guildmaster. Are you referring to the first rank? Even the United States exhausted their resources hunting for the top 10 data. But the file for number 1 corrupted. Or so they claim. Perhaps they are hoarding the information, hiding a monster within their borders to use as a weapon. Shinji nodded slowly. I believed the rumors too. But after facing him in person, the memory of that overwhelming pressure returned. It is highly probable. He is the first rank. The Guildmaster's expression turned grave. If even you sense that power, then the danger is absolute. She gazed out at the city skyline. Issue a command to the entire guild. Hostility against him is strictly forbidden. Treat him like a dormant nuclear warhead. We do not know when the timer will hit 0. Her voice left no room for argument. Handle with extreme care. Shinji bowed, deeply trembling. Understood. Meanwhile, across the concrete jungle in a luxury high-rise, weeks had passed. The protagonist stood by the window, surveying his new domain, searching for the perfect hideout. He was calculating his next move when a voice broke his concentration. His underlings were busy setting up the command center. One subordinate approached, grinning as he opened a heavy suitcase. Boss, the taxes for the day have been collected. Piles of cash gleamed within. Not bad, the protagonist nodded approvingly. And the attack squad, are they prepared? It is a breeze. We are power leveling in the underground sewers. Making 1 million yen a day is child's play. His eyes sparkled with greed. Even the rookies are pulling in 100,000 yen daily, the long-haired subordinate chimed in. I never successfully dreamed of such wealth. Thank you, boss, the protagonist smirked. I told you. Follow me and you prosper. Your success is my profit. Consider the tax a small fee for my exclusive intel. The subordinate swallowed. Asterisk. 90% is robbery. But without his guidance, we wouldn't even make 10%. Asterisk. He glanced at his leader with awe. Asterisk. This man holds the keys to the kingdom. Asterisk. Boss, what about the judgment event? Only 10 days remain and the bounty has hit 400 million yen. The protagonist remained terrifyingly calm. Patience. We wait. Suddenly, the television screen flashed red. An emergency broadcast captured his attention. It displayed the ominous test site. Warning. Failure to complete the mission in 10 days will result in the annihilation of Japan. The news anchor's voice trembled. It is the beginning of the end. All hope seems lost. But then a second anchor interrupted. Breaking news, the government has authorized a desperate measure, a reward of 1 billion yen to the savior who clears the test. 1 billion. The protagonist's eyes sharpened. If we delay any longer, the vultures from foreign guilds will swoop in. He grabbed his coat, an aura of determination flaring around him. The time is now. I am moving out. The subordinate gasped. Alone, boss, he smirked, adjusting his collar. Of course, I cannot risk my golden geese. The room filled with admiration for his leadership. But internally, his true nature surfaced. Asterisk. It is 1 billion yen. Asterisk. Asterisk, I will devour every single yen. Asterisk. The subordinate blinked, realizing the truth. Asterisk. Ah. It is just about the money. Asterisk. Night had fallen by the time he reached the epicenter. A sea of hunters swarmed the gates of the judgment zone. The protagonist parted the crowd like the Red Sea. Shinji spotted him instantly. The man walked with a chilling calmness, as if he were merely shopping for groceries. Shinji rushed over, hopeful. You came. The protagonist didn't break stride. I am not here to join you. I have no intention of cooperating. Shinji didn't back down. A shame. I had a very profitable proposal in mind. Simple transport work. Payment is 100 million yen. The protagonist froze his head, snapping toward Shinji. Speak. Shinji guided him into a massive storage area, gesturing toward hundreds of heavy-duty supply packs stacked against the wall. He explained the mission was simple: take just one of these packs to his guild members inside the dungeon. But for a reward of 100 million yen, the protagonist had to ask what kind of treasure was hidden inside. Shinji revealed the truth: they were merely provisions. Opening a bag, Endu saw it was packed with high-grade rations and potions. He asked why simple food was worth a fortune, and Shinji's expression darkened. These were the guildmaster's personal favorites, and they were currently deep in the abyss. The strike team was on the deepest layer of the exam, and their supplies were critically low. With a casual smile, the protagonist asked where the catch was. After all, for that much cash, countless hunters would line up for the job. Shinji rubbed his neck, looking visibly embarrassed as he dropped the bomb. The situation was desperate. Shinji confessed that he had already hired 39 different groups to attempt this delivery, and every single one of them had been annihilated. Endu frowned, calculating the odds. The first 4 layers were supposed to be mere formalities, barely harder than a tutorial. He wondered if the dungeon's difficulty had spiked unexpectedly. Shinji, sweating nervously, assured him that the mechanics were identical to the game simulations. However, the reality was brutal. Most people couldn't even survive the trek to the 5th layer. It was a graveyard for the unprepared. Everyone who actually made it that far was starving and waiting for backup. Shinji noted that only 2 people considered the 4th layer a formality: Endu and his own guildmaster. Hefting the heavy pack with ease, the protagonist realized just how short-staffed this guild really was. But manpower issues weren't his problem. Making money was. He looked at the nervous handler and saw an opportunity. If he was going to walk into a death zone, he wanted a speed bonus. Grabbing his phone, Shinji immediately dialed his superiors to authorize the deal. Watching the man scramble, Endu did the mental math. He wondered just how much he could squeeze out of this desperate guild. Shinji returned with good news. If he delivered the package within 24 hours, they'd add another 50 million yen. Suddenly, a gust of wind slammed into Shinji. He blinked, realizing the protagonist had vanished, leaving only a fading echo promising to be there in an hour. Meanwhile, on the hellish 3rd layer, a group of examinees was fighting a losing battle against a colossal insectoid monster. A desperate man struggled to hold back the beast's pincers, his boots sliding in the dirt as he was crushed under its weight. He screamed for his partner to run, choosing to sacrifice himself to buy her time. Tears streamed down her face as she begged him not to leave her. He glanced back one last time, a tragic smile on his face as he thanked her for everything. She screamed his name, reaching out in vain as the monster lunged. Suddenly, a silver flash tore through the air. The protagonist sliced the monster in half, effortlessly grumbling that they were blocking his path. The man fell back stunned as the massive creature disintegrated into particles of light around him. He patted his chest, unable to comprehend that he was still breathing. His wife sobbed, thanking Endu for the miracle. But before they could even finish their sentence, the player was already a blur on the horizon. He left the bewildered couple in the dust, their drama meaningless to his mission. As the protagonist tore through the cavern at supersonic speeds, time was the only enemy. The terrain blurred past him until he finally skidded to a halt at the entrance of the 5th layer. Endu checked the time. It hadn't even been 60 minutes. A smirk tugged at his lips. 150 million yen for a morning jog? This was the easiest money he had ever made. But his celebration was cut short by a voice calling out from the shadows. A weary hunter approached, asking if he was the courier named Endu. Dropping the supply pack, the protagonist verified if the man was from the Genesis Wings Guild. The hunter nodded, relief washing over his exhausted face. Endu stated he brought the goods Shinji requested. The hunter checked his device, confirming the completion, and informed him the payment was already processing. Since the delivery was confirmed instantly, the funds were released. Opening his banking app, Endu's eyes lit up as he saw 150 million yen hit his balance. Satisfied with the transaction, he thanked the man for the business. Suddenly, more players emerged from the gloom, looking like walking skeletons. Their squad leader sighed with relief, announcing that their long fast was finally over. The starving hunters tore into the supplies, tears of joy in their eyes. They cheered that they were finally saved from starvation. Endu watched them, noting that the morale here was absolutely terrible. The leader agreed somberly, admitting that they had lost far too many good people on the way down. But the moment of respite didn't last. Panic suddenly erupted from the rear guard. Hunters began sprinting back toward the camp, screaming that it had found them. They dove for cover, claiming they were safe, while the confused leader demanded a sit rep. But before anyone could explain, a deafening screech shattered the silence. The sonic blast brought everyone to their knees in agony. They looked toward the tunnel entrance, where a massive cloud of dust signaled doom. Despair filled the cave as a swarm of high-level insectoids surged forward like a tidal wave. The protagonist shifted his stance, preparing to wipe them out. But before he could move, a blinding inferno roared past him. The guildmaster charged into the fray, her body wreathed in scorching flames. With a single fluid motion, she incinerated the entire swarm. She halted her blade, still glowing with heat, as the charred remains of the monsters rained down around her. Endu's eyes narrowed. He recognized that pressure immediately. It was the high-tier secret art, the elemental sword Hellfire. The warrior turned her aura, receding as she thanked Endu for accepting the transport mission. Sheathing her blade with a sharp click, she finally introduced herself. She was the guildmaster of Genesis Wings, and her presence alone commanded absolute respect. Hey everyone, did you enjoy this recap? If you want to see how this legendary encounter unfolds, make sure to subscribe and smash that like button. See you in the next chapter, Hunters.